And welcome everyone in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the storytelling call. And before I turn it over to our co-host or our lead host today, Jeff, because I think Avery is at SoCap, and I don't know where Tyler is. Tyler seems to be traveling a lot these days. So just as an introduction to everybody, and I think everybody's pretty familiar with the formats because you've all been on the calls before. Storytelling is not a goal by itself, but infused in all the other goals. So we take a time out every month to kind of circle in and see what's going on with everything around storytelling. And there's a lot of momentum going on, so we're really excited with Annika's social ventures and Jeff's EB Hub, along with Tyler and Avery. Yuval's got the podcast going with Keystone. She just launched today an episode with a discussion with Victor Huang. So all of that momentum is going on. Co-Starters has their the intersections that they do, and so a lot of initiatives around storytelling. I know today, with Kim not being on the call, we will. Jeff talked about inviting Kim Wallace Carlson, and we talked about inviting Lauren Alshire at some point to discuss. I know next month Hassan has graciously connected us with another organization to talk about their storytelling efforts. So that'll all be shared. So as a way to introduce everybody and welcome everyone onto the call, because Jeff made a comment, and we roll with these, Jeff made a comment that this seems like a call-in radio show a little bit. And Annika has said that, that she wanted to know whether or not we were going to be able to request a song. So our question for today is, if this was a call-in radio show, what song would you request? And keeping in mind it's a storytelling call, so maybe if you know of a song that becomes a story, I think most songs are, think of what song you would request. And I'm going to kick it off by asking Hassan, what song would you request? And I'm going to try to unmute you. There you go. Whoop. Okay, go ahead.
Can't hear you, Hassan. You're muted. Now it shows you good now. It's still not hearing you. I think you have to sign language.
Okay, maybe type your answer into the chat while we get you going.
There you go, yeah.
Maybe we can all type them into the chat.
Okay, all right. Whoa, that's a good idea. All right, Katie, go ahead.
Ode to Billy Joe. And what made him jump off the bridge across Choctaw Ridge?
That's a good storytelling song. All right, pick your next person.
Okay, Anika. Or is it Annika? Correct me.
Annika. I'm gonna have to go with "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi. But more so, you know, we as ecosystem builders live on a greater cause that we're pursuing, and we join hands and we go crazy and we chase this until we burn. So that's gonna be mine. Plus, it's really good to sing along in the car when you really turn it up. Kicking it over to Jeff Bennett.
I would say there's a song stuck in my head right now from one I listened to yesterday. It's a song from a Martin Scorsese blues tribute. John Fogerty covered and it's just stuck in my head, so I'll go with that. And Cecilia, I will wait for you to tell us the Bruce Springsteen song that you would request.
He knows I will.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to go with the Bruce song, right? I'm not surrounded by my Bruce stuff since I'm traveling. One of his best storytelling songs would have been my go-to, but with Annika saying about living on a prayer being kind of an anthem, I will go with Thunder Road, because Thunder Road always to me was an invitation to start on a path of something else. Like the door's open, but the ride ain't free. So it's up to you whether or not you want to get on board and go down that road. So Thunder Road is definitely my go-to song a lot of the time. So I will kick it over to Jess. What song would you request?
Kind of on the spot, but I think probably Johnny Cash, I've Been Everywhere. Usually when I talk to everybody, everyone has traveled quite a bit or has seen a lot of different kind of communities. So I love that song. Yeah, that would be mine for now. How about Beth?
Hey, so I think I would go with Cool Change by the Little River Band. It kind of gives me a forward thinking, once we're successful in achieving the change that needs to happen across the country with ecosystem building, then we will have a chance to experience this cool change. And can you please popcorn to someone else, because I can't see who's on.
Okay. Let me say that Hassan typed in here that he's been listening to a lot of Phil Spector. So so he doesn't have any particular song, but you know, I don't know. Can we hear you now, Hassan?
I'm sorry.
Oh, what? Oh,
I think we are developing a playlist
oh,
for ecosystem builders, entrepreneurial
Absolutely.
playlist, because you can't pick just one song.
I think that you may be right, and that storytelling is a good way to put that in there. So
I would have to amend based on that comment. I'd have to amend it and say the with a little help from my friends by the Beatles, since that was the
Yeah,
song at the last
absolutely.
ESHIP Summit.
You know what?
For sure.
We could pick a song for each of the 7 elements.
The goals.
Yeah,
There you go.
that
Okay.
would be our playlist.
Oh, ecosystem builder playlist. I think
Can
that
we make people pay to download that and do it as a fundraiser?
Hey, Jeff, is there a blog post that goes along with that?
Well, I made a note. We'll see.
Okay, so Michelle, I think we left you off. Michelle, what song would you
Hey, everyone. So when we were little and my sister and I would get dumped with all the neighborhood children while our parents had a good time, we used to spend hours calling into the oldies station in Atlanta. And we used to always request Rockin' Robin. I'm not exactly sure how that relates to ecosystem building or if it belongs on a playlist, but it is the first thing that comes to mind for what I would request.
I think that's absolutely fair. All right, Jeff, I'm going to kick it off to you to lead us on our way on the call.
Okay. So I think there's not a lot of updates, and since we're going to have Annika and Jess and whoever else has been involved in that, and I'm kind of unaware, so we'll have them fill it, kind of give us product updates and whatnot for the meat of this call. But other than that, I think the only other thing to report on is that the 6.2 storytelling group, I guess, team we met again, Beth, a couple of weeks ago to kind of take things a little further. I don't know that there's really anything to report out about that. I've just written an article, a story about Beth's Erie PR campaign, and I've shared that with Beth today to review accuracy, and I shared it with co-stars to start editing. So hopefully we'll get that released by the end of next week, or by the end of the month. So we can share that out. And then the plan with 6.2 and storytelling is to do another or a few more community spotlights of communities who have done PR campaigns or marketing campaigns to raise the awareness of entrepreneurial ecosystem building. And that's Beth. If you have anything to add there, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you. Not really. I did get a chance to start reviewing the draft, so thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to get through the rest of it and provide you some feedback. So did you say Co-Starters is going to be editing it?
Yeah, so the plan is for that to be going into the Co-Starters Intersections publication.
Okay,
so
cool.
they usually just edit it for my grammar and typos and to tighten things up, because sometimes I repeat myself too much or something, or use a word too much. So it's just that kind of edits.
Yeah, I know. It's always best practice to do that. The one other thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know how connected all of us are to Engine, but back when, her name is escaping me, I think it was Jennifer, was there at Engine. She had done, they periodically do reviews and interviews with ecosystem builders, and they had done one with us a year or so ago, and they republished it just about a week or so ago. So they might be a good source for other stories as well. Are you connected with Engine?
I am not.
I think Christine has talked to people at Engine, but there seems to be some turnover. So like you said, Jennifer's gone. If you have a link to that, maybe we can share it on Slack and social media. That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, just send that to me via whatever method, Beth, and I'll share that.
I will.
I really love that everybody's promoting everyone else's stuff. I think that's the whole advocate for each other has been really great. Grace, welcome to the party. I see you just logged on, and we went around creating a playlist for ecosystem building. So I'm curious to know what song you would request if this was a call-in station and you wanted to share a story song or something.
Hello? Okay, sorry. So what are the parameters for a song for this playlist?
Well, a couple of us started off with just a song that we would request, and then it kind of morphed into if we were putting together an ecosystem builder playlist. Annika had suggested Living on a Prayer. So, some of that, and Jess said I've been everywhere because everyone keeps traveling and exploring stuff. So is there a song that comes to mind?
The first one was We Are Family.
Oh, I love that.
I love that one too.
All right. So with a little help from our friends and yes. So Jeff, there's definitely a blog post on that.
I would take mine back. I got to pick another song because mine is about death and despair. I have to come up with something else.
Well, we made you kick off, so yes. Yeah. So you think about that, and we'll come to you. I love that idea. So just to share with everybody else, I've written a couple of blog posts. It's more about one was about how people come into community, how people show up, and some of the assumptions that we've had, and how that may not be the full story. So being involved in community, and it's on my Medium blog. And then the other one that I just shared also is things I no longer believe about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, because some of it really doesn't resonate anymore, and it's a lot of the myths that we fall into. So that's my contribution to telling our story just a little bit. Okay, Jeff.
Okay, so let's see. Well, thanks, Annika. Annika just shared via Slack a link about Engine. So we've talked a little bit about the 6.2 and storytelling. So I think the meat of the discussion really now is to hear from whoever has been involved with. I know Annika and Jess had kind of two idea. One Annika's was ESHIP 2020, and Jess's was Insung's ecosystem builders, and I think those two have kind of combined. So let's hear from you guys what that initiative is, where things are at, what help you might need from people, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Jess, I'll start because I think you'll probably have more to say, possibly. So, as many of you know, we are in the process of moving from Canada back to the US, currently in Asheville, crashing with my in-laws, which is wonderful. But
What a cool place to be.
yeah, it's really nice. So after our last call, I put together sort of a 5-page proposal about what this could look like, which is very pie in the sky. If we had all the resources, here's what we could do. The idea was to bring everybody up to speed, to dedicate the year 2020 to the 7 ESHIP goals, as well as the storytelling initiative, and sort of shedding a light on the goals and also on the people who were turning these goals into reality. And that was sort of the unsung ecosystem builders idea, which I got really excited about until I realized that I don't know how to get anyone on this team paid for doing the work. Because if we want to do it properly and in depth with podcasts, video, social media, whatnot, that it's a lot of work, and I don't know how to finance that kind of thing. So
Welcome to the ED Hub world.
That absolutely stopped me in my tracks. And Jess was wonderful. She jumped on the proposal and made suggestions. And I would like to talk to Jess and just see where she sees this, and get input from everybody if there are any ideas about, is there a revenue model? Is this something we could pitch as a partnership model? I'd love to do it with ED Hub. But like I said, like this total fear of not being able to pay anyone for this massive amount of work just stopped me in my tracks. So with that being said, since our last call, a proposal was written, an editorial calendar was developed. So those things are in place, but I can't move forward until I know how we can pay for that. So that would be my ask for the group is, are there any concrete ideas on how to pitch this and who to pitch this to have some funds to be able to remunerate people? And before we jump into that, I'd love to hand over to Jess and see what she wants to add.
Sure. Thanks, Annika. So good point about needing money. That's always something that's important. So based on trying to collect some great stories from, maybe communities that need to be highlighted, or stories in bigger communities that we don't know, I did make a Unsung Ecosystem Builder nomination form draft, and I'll share that in the chat right now. So the help that I would need from the group at this point is to take a look at the draft, and I'm happy to walk through it, but it's a very simple single-page document, and the goal is once everybody agrees on the final form, or if this one's good to go, we would take November and December on Annika's timeline that she made the schedule for, to push out the nomination form and to just start getting to be able to collect some stories that we could, to Annika's point, if we have stories, maybe we could then use those to find the appropriate strategic partners or people that we think might be interested in highlighting the stories. But that would be my big ask for today, is if everyone could open up the link to the form and let me know what you think. And once we can finalize and not make it a draft, start pushing it out on the ESHIP Facebook page, LinkedIn, and wherever else anyone thinks they can push it out and ask people to nominate. But that's pretty much what I had for today. I guess, Annika, as everyone's thinking about where to find money, we could just keep brainstorming and maybe try to have another meeting or something in the meantime. But yeah, so that's my ask for today, is if everyone could take 2 minutes to look at the draft. If it's approved, I'd like to send it out and start promoting it. But basically, we were thinking November, December, to just try to collect as many stories as possible and then go from there.
That's so cool. So Jess, did you say, is the link in Slack?
She just
I will put it there right now.
Thank you, Jeff.
Put in the storytelling, and let's see.
I think you did put, yeah, I think you added it to the storytelling Slack channel.
I just added it to the meetup agenda notes document, but I also just put it into the Slack storytelling channel.
Great.
Thank you.
I think that if you put it together, can you do it as a project canvas? Can you take one of those project canvas templates and utilize that to create a project under it? And maybe we can share it as Christine talks to organizations and national resource providers about support for ESHIP goals. It's something that we can share, and we're trying to figure out the best way to share that with organizations. So, so as people fill out those project canvases, we're going to upload them eventually to a different page aside from the dashboard, but those will be shared around with organizations. I think that there are definitely organizations that work around storytelling that would be really interested. I'm going to suggest, maybe it's not my place to suggest, but one of the low-hanging fruits of how we share how ecosystem building matters and part of the initiative. So I'll let you connect the dots, but the Kauffman Foundation has just launched Start Us Up, which is America's new business plan. It's a bipartisan effort to get policymakers and people that create those structures to buy into ecosystem building as part of an evolution of economic development. I think that if you have examples of how that's being utilized or catalyzed in your community, or you see some efforts, if you would share things about that, that would be widely distributed, I would imagine, because the idea of having people sign up and move forward, I think is definitely relevant. Does that make sense?
Could you frame that in a sentence? I was trying to take notes, but I got a little lost. Could you reframe that once more as what's the value we're looking for, or the messaging we're looking for?
So the value that I see is as this initiative is being kicked off across the country. So it's a bipartisan effort, federal, state, and local level sign up for America's new business plan to support entrepreneurship and small business.
Yep.
You can illustrate how those things are happening in a community. Let's say if you have a lawmaker or a community, leader that's working on something like that. I mean, it helps to elevate their exposure and how they're infusing ecosystem building into their work. I think that there is something around that. So I'm not quite sure. I'm just thinking that that it's something that might be able to be widely distributed because there's a big initiative around it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you, Cecilia.
Okay. Grace, can you share with us what you just wrote?
I was just going to ask about that. Grace and Katie both had recommendations, I think, for Jess's form.
Okay, so my recommendation was looking at the form, editing what project or work has had great impact in your community, to which of the nominees' projects and or work do you want to recognize for its community impact. Because if I'm nominating somebody as an unsung ecosystem builder, I might not be directly impacted by them. Like I might want to nominate people from Impact Hub Baltimore, for instance, but my community in Houston might not have been impacted, or I might be a donor, and so on. So just changing instances of how has their work impacted your community to how has their work impacted the community or their community or the target community.
Sure, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great.
My recommendation was to make sure that we get complete contact information for the nominee and the nominator, including website address.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent.
Thank you.
Something else, Annika, did you want to share a link to your proposal and editorial calendar, and then I can link them in the notes here, or you can do that if you want, or if you want to keep it closed for now, that's okay too.
No, the more the merrier.
Okay,
really.
so yeah, if you can put it in the chat, and then I can grab it and put it in the document, or if you just want to highlight in the notes where I said that you've got a proposal and an editorial calendar and put the link there, that'd be great.
Sure, I dropped it in the chat, and I'm happy to add it to
Okay.
our. I think you already did that for me last time.
So this is
In the
I
agenda?
think I did it somewhere, but I don't remember where. I've got too many documents where I keep track of things.
So my suggestion for moving forward with this subcommittee, what are we called officially, Cecilia? We are a project team. Is that right?
So I don't. This is kind of overarching. So usually, if there was an initiative that you were working on, so storytelling is an initiative, but this group in itself is kind of infused in all the goals. So you have probably the biggest field view as far as all 7 goals go. Yeah, it's pretty powerful because you're the ones that that help connect the networks, right? To go across all of the goals and throughout the community. The other one is you're the ones that are actually sharing the wins. So it's a lot of goal 6 and a lot of goal 4.
Yeah.
And in that there's a lot of goal 7 as well, because you're elevating the sustainability of the work that we do. So it's all over. So you are a force within yourself. And
Someone make us a cape.
I think there's a storytelling cape that that goes along with that, and a couple of cool shirts. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So, with whatever unit we are, I'm playing with words like the masters of storytelling or something like that. Jess and I will work on a canvas just to sort of put this into context from the brief. I shared the link to the proposal. If everyone who's on this call and everyone who listens to the recording of this call and wasn't on it, if you guys want to look this brief over, there is a beautiful little table at the end with roles that we're trying to fill. And if you want to put your name down because one of these roles really speaks to you and makes your heart skip a beat because you're excited to take it on, then please do that. And I think I'm going to pull together with Jess and Jeff, that's gonna, okay, it's gonna ring for it. I probably want to touch base with the 2 of you because I want a core team in place, and you are hereby officially nominated to be part of the core team, so that we can move forward. Katie, I'm sorry, what?
It's called voluntold.
Voluntold, yes.
And for what it's worth, I don't think I put it anywhere in your proposal, but happy to share any of the stories on EV Hub as a platform where they can be published.
Well, I was wondering if EV Hub could be the home.
Sure.
But we can talk about that.
Yeah. The big question is how to pay people to write the content or create the content.
Wow.
Yep. All right, I'll talk to the 2 of you separately if anyone wants to be in on a dedicated conversation just about this campaign and how to raise funds. Anyone wants to write us a check, just email me or Jeff or Jess, and we'll be happy to take that. Yes, but I didn't want to take up the whole call to talk about this. So I feel like this is a conversation we'll have separately, and then we can tackle that.
Any other aspects of the project that you'd like to talk about, get people's input from or ideas about? I mean, that's basically this is the meat of this particular call this month.
Okay.
So if it's an opportunity to basically explore the project more if you'd like.
Okay, great.
This is a great brief. And so I see now you estimate how much work it's going to take to get some of these elements done, especially the interviewing and the writing. And and depending upon how formal you want the podcast to be, that could really take some significant time. So now I see why you want to get some money so you can pay people a little bit.
Yeah. And what's important to note is, I was hoping Tyler would be on here. In the back of my mind, the podcast part was always either Jeff or Tyler, but that's part of the pie in the sky. Like, if we had the funds, that's what I would love to do. But on a bare minimum, we could just record the conversations on Zoom, which is pretty straightforward, and then see if we can utilize it later or not. And what I want to point out is this is not something where everyone on this call or everyone who's involved in the project team needs to work 12 months to make this happen. The idea was really to divide and conquer and say who wants to do 3 in the spring, who wants to do 3 in the summer, and really make sure it fits with everybody else's schedule. So in my role, would be the one who's overseeing and also creating content, but really making sure that if Jeff commits to 3 interviews and 3 only, he has a write-up and delivers them whenever he can. And then I just make sure that it fits into the bigger picture. There was the idea to time it a little bit month by month on different goals, but totally open for that. I would just be the master person who dedicates that we have content throughout and that it's sort of the overall picture makes sense. So I just want you all to know that.
Any thought into, I'm just thinking, you mentioned podcasts, and I'm not, you all is, of course, doing the Keystone. I wonder if there's any opportunity for collaboration there. I think she's wrapping up the end of season 1. She's publishing out this kind of seasons, I think, so I don't know if it's a fit anyway, but just wondering if there might be opportunity to chat about that.
That would be great.
And also, I think another thing to talk about is when you say podcast, do you actually mean an official podcast that's registered and submitted to iTunes, or do you just mean an audio recording that's available on a website? There's a subtle distinction.
Yes. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just figured we need something audio. I think podcasts would be great, but I don't want to create something. So it would be ideal if it fit with something that's already out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've done podcasts and worked with Yuval a bit in the early stages of hers, and putting out a podcast that's official and available on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud and all those things. It's a lot of work if you produce it like Yuval's doing right now.
Yeah.
It's less so if you do it like I've done podcasts, but still it's a big lift in various ways you can go.
Yeah. I'd love to chat to her and see if that's something she's interested in, because it's a great fit, but I would have to learn a little bit more about what she's trying to do and see if that really aligns with what we're trying to do. My hope is it does, because in that sense, we could probably really help her create some content and just really join forces to have a louder voice and more visibility.
And you mentioned Tyler. I know it's the kind of thing Tyler wants to do, would love to do, but I don't know if everybody here knows he's just been hired by Startup Space to some kind of a sales
partnership
role. Yeah, so he's going to be pretty busy with them, I think, for the near future.
Okay. I'm just going to put it out there. Does anyone else have an idea on how to tackle the biggest challenge right now, which is funding ideas? Does anyone have a good experience? Does anyone have any contacts? I know everybody always asks for money, but is there a way that I could think about this that I'm not currently thinking about it in terms of value proposition and approaching partners?
Well,
I think the NRPs have the most to gain from this being successful, right?
Yes.
So maybe talking with Christine about, how that would play, what's the process look like and are we close to having a process to talk about our projects and which NRPs would probably have some interest in supporting them. Because again, if this is successful, ultimately the NRPs are going to be the ones that increase their profits.
Yeah, so some of that is, obviously the conversations are taking place, and what would be infinitely helpful is to have some canvases or projects, because right now what we were sharing on the dashboard are ideas about projects. but there isn't a whole lot tangible that, you know, we talk about them on the calls and people give updates, but there really isn't anything to share. So I know Alistair has sent over a project canvas, which we're about to upload onto the dashboard, but that's like 1 out of 30, right? And all those initiatives are also, it's not like just one, it's like one of the ideas or initiatives can be 5 different projects. It depends on what your version or iteration of that topic is. Storytelling is definitely one, and I know, Jeff, you've created a project canvas for storytelling in the past. Maybe
So
now.
question about that. There's the ones that we did at the ESHIP Summit, and so are you thinking that we need to resubmit I mean, that was a project canvas was created there, and you want just another version of that?
Right. So what happened prior to, right? So prior to the ESHIP Summit, we had some iteration of some of these things. Obviously, you filled out one for storytelling, and then it's actually launched. So you're in another phase. The exercise for all of you who were at the last ESHIP Summit this past year is we had a hackathon. And we came up with canvases. There are people that raised their hand and said, this is great, I want to lead. Count me in if you're interested in being involved, or keep me in the loop. And what we did was we shared all of those project canvases that came out of the hackathon with everybody who was around to say, is this something you want to move forward on? Some people have reached out to those who were involved in the hackathon or involved in a project that they were interested in. There's been varying levels of interest, and so there are some groups. Beth is involved in a couple of those initiatives. I think like 6.5 and 6.7, and so there's a couple of them that are kind of moving forward. And we didn't want, so the hackathon that happened at the ESHIP Summit was simply an exercise and to get the ball rolling. And like I said, it was up to those people that raised their hand to create those project teams to kind of keep the ball moving along. And so what would be helpful is if those projects are moving forward, if you share those project canvases with us, then we can share them not only across the community, like, hey, this is actually at the next level or the next steps, but also share them with national resource providers, because they have nothing to look at. It's just kind of like, hey, do you want to get involved in supporting these initiatives for ecosystem building? And so some of the questions that are coming up during those discussions, as I've talked to Christine, is like, okay, so like what? And like what doesn't go back to maybe the hackathon stuff because it was an exercise, but those aren't actually project teams, right? Those were a bunch of people that sat around for an hour or two, worked on a project canvas. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, I guess that clarifies things, because I assumed that since we did that project canvas there, that I had fulfilled that request to do a project canvas.
Yes, and
that's not the case.
And you did for that, and that's great. But I can't. What we're having a challenge with is like we can't tell which ones are actually moving forward and which ones kind of just stopped at the hackathon part. So if you have a canvas or something that you're working on that's actually with momentum and moving forward, like this is actually a thing and we would like some support, then if you can share them so we can make them visible, that gives us an opportunity. I think that there's maybe one of the next communications that we have is, so you know, we keep inviting project teams to update us on what's going on, but it hasn't gotten past the, okay, this is what we're doing. We don't actually have anything visible that we can share out. So I guess that's the next call to action.
Okay.
If you're
And
working with a project team.
I think we should do, Beth, you and I maybe can collaborate on a 6.2 storytelling canvas as well.
Absolutely.
Actually, let's just say this. Let's just when we do our next call on 6.2 and storytelling, let's have a chat about that and get some others to help with that too, because I know I'm
For
out
sure.
of capacity.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Go ahead, Jess.
Oh, I just have a couple questions for you, Cecilia, on those things and a possible idea for everyone. So my two questions are, say if we can get this canvas done, say like pretty quickly, like a turnaround of maybe 2 weeks, would you by any chance know the estimated timeline of like when we could start discussing with folks of the larger groups as you're mentioning? And the second part of that is you knowing kind of the umbrella groups or the bigger initiatives. Are there any that kind of stick out to you right now that we should target that would be best to talk to once we get our canvas up and running?
So talk to them. Okay, so let me understand. Talking to them in what form? Like is there a story to tell, or is there?
Well, for the, as you mentioned, maybe I'm not following the so because we have to do a canvas to kind of outline what we need the funding for, the project we're doing, that goes to the larger ESHIP initiative, right?
So one of the things that there's two things that are kind of running in parallel, and I know that one of the things is about it's about an RFP, right? So we talked about the possible RFP process of what we've got coming up, and that's so. Participatory grant making is something that's really never been done before. It's something that we thought would be formed or thought through by now, and wanted to fund some initiatives. So there are some challenges because participatory grant making is new, and so we're still working on that. And so Andy will actually share what's going on around those efforts within the foundation, and then Christine outside the foundation to talk about national resource providers and how that's working. So so that will be shared out as I know Andy's traveling this week, but in the next couple of weeks that we're definitely going to share with the wider community like how that process is going. Right now, as Christine is contacting national resource providers and asking them what's of interest to you, like which goals are interesting, which ones are your mission and vision aligned with, like where can we get support? She's asking for some support in funding some initiatives. And some of the questions, like I said, that are coming up is, okay, so what are you working on? So if we can give them some ideas of the things that are being worked on around the community. So I know Beth has a call 6.5 and talking about how to support initiatives around that project. If there's a canvas or something that the team can come up with, then we can share it with national resource providers and say, this is what they're looking for. They need some infrastructure. They need funding for these things. And it's a clearer ask than this, does inclusion matter to you? Is this how you're aligned? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
With that being said, I do have an idea to run by the group. So I was planning on nominating close to my hometown of Buffalo, New York, my best boss and mentor ever, Pat Whalen. He is credited with building the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus to what it is today, which is a big economic hub and a big revitalization project for Buffalo. And he now is in Niagara Falls, New York, and they are about to open a travel tech co-working space. And if anyone's been to Niagara Falls, they know that everyone is told to go to the Canadian side of the falls to see the nice side of the falls. And Niagara Falls is pretty pretty run down. But anyways, I was thinking if we need it as kind of a guinea pig project. I am going to be in Buffalo the week of November 11th, and I'm happy to kind of do a test drive or a beta on. I can interview Pat and his project and take pictures or record if we want to try it out. And also another great project, he's working with someone called Chef Bobby, who was on Hell's Kitchen or one of those, and he now is in Niagara Falls doing a high school training with Starbucks for Niagara Falls High School, and it trains the kids how to run a company and be baristas, and it's a really great project. But anyways, I was planning on nominating them regardless, but because I know them and I can make them basically sit with me for a couple hours if we need it, I'm more than happy to do a beta or a guinea pig project so that we could just see how it goes, how much time it takes, all of that. If that is something we want to do. If not, that's totally fine, but just an idea.
And I think that's good. And I think that could inform, so Cecilia asked Annika and you if you guys could do a project canvas. And I think that would help. Part of correct me if I'm wrong, Cecilia, but I think the project canvas kind of allude to the funding requirements needed to make the project doable. So if part of filling out a project canvas around the Unsung Heroes ESHIP 2020 initiative, fill that out, then that can be shown to our national resource providers and see if anybody's interested in funding that. So I think that's where Cecilia's coming around saying, do a canvas, and that can help address the funding aspect of it. Did I got that right?
That's great.
I'm wondering if we couldn't also look at some areas and see where we can get in-kind support, not necessarily money. So, if you want a really good quality podcast, most of the effort is in editing, really producing, finalizing the podcast. Because you can do an interview in 30 minutes, it may take 3 hours to, get it all edited and formatted and all that stuff. So if there's a company that has some resources in that area and they would be our official, podcast sponsor.
Well, that's where it'd be interesting to talk with Yuval, because she's gotten some help to do her podcast. She has an editor. She has, I don't know the details, but it's underwritten, or I don't know if it's funded or in kind or what, but there is some kind of a sponsorship deal that she is saying.
She's supported by a local community foundation in Tulsa. Actually, the foundation, the Schusterman Foundation, supports young people of Jewish descent, and so she's been supported by the Schusterman Foundation because she falls in that demographic. So things like that are definitely helpful. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be entrepreneurship focused, right? We always think of Case and Kaufman as the go-tos around entrepreneurship, but then Knight Foundation is interested in news and broadcasting and things like that. So maybe they take an angle. And Hassan, I know you've worked with Kresge. So there are some missions and visions under the Kresge Foundation. Is that right?
Yeah. And there's actually and I mentioned this in that email that I sent to Jeff and Tyler. The Community Foundation here in Southeast Michigan has funded over the last few years various storytelling initiatives. And there's one that they're getting ready to launch probably in the next month or so. Part of that also includes David's startup space. So part of the stories will actually live on startup space. So it's a big initiative. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things that I was thinking of, I don't know with the folks on the call, if there are local community foundations where you're at, and if any of those community foundations are funding any storytelling initiatives, because what's been done in Detroit is a model for that through some of the community foundations. So there are examples of it being done very successfully out of Detroit through community foundations.
And I know Beth is on an initiative that's how to catalyze community foundations. So that's one of your goal 6 initiatives. Is that right, Beth?
Yeah, so I actually am going to have to jump off because we have a 6-5 update call at 4 o'clock. But yeah, absolutely. There's a project team around that. If anyone on this call wants to be a part, certainly let me know. And that's awesome, Hassan. And I don't know if we can connect on that offline. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Grace, what were you sharing so that everybody else can see visibility? That would be great because that's wonderful to know.
Sure. So I get Pointer's newsletters, Poynter, and they advocate for ethical journalism. They also provide training and events. And if you go to Poynter, poynter.org/NEWS NewsU, you can find some of those resources. But when you're talking about in-kind support, they might be able to offer that, especially when it comes to editing. I saw that they have a lot of editing training specifically for podcasting on the site. And then I'm also an advisor to Houston Public Media, which is our local NPR and PBS affiliate. So I'd like to learn more about how local ecosystem builders are working with their local media, and then see if there's some way that we can also either replicate that, or if there's something that we can pilot that we might be able to, then use it as a best practice for other people to copy, or a playbook for other people to copy. That would be great. Or if just somebody wants to get connected with our local affiliate to see if that could be an entry point to the other affiliates, I'm happy to make connections too.
Grace, that would be fantastic. That's part of the pie in the sky, is how do we, and the 6.2 is how do we connect local ecosystem builders with their local media? Because there's great stories, we just don't know how to make those connections. So please bring this up again and again in case we don't talk about it in the next call, but that's something we definitely want to work on.
Okay.
So, okay, so Jess is asking about quick next steps. So, so as far as the ESHIP ecosystem builder side, and I'm speaking kind of for Christine. So Christine focused on national resource providers. So some people or organizations with more of a field-wide view, and whatever we can share. Some of these resources that were brought up today are definitely more local focused or sector or specific focused, like Schusterman and young Jewish professionals kind of thing. But they're all very valuable, and they can all support, like to Katie's point, specifically for certain things. I think sharing that in Slack and maybe creating a repository of here's some ways that we know of, I think is helpful for everybody, right? This is the way, so Grace can share things like, this is the way we do it, and maybe it can be replicated or similar. As far as the ESHIP community goes and how we can support you on the ESHIP team is, if I have project canvases, we can share them out widely. Right? So what you need usually goes into a project canvas. And so things that you're looking for, or even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but other resource providers can look at it and go, wow, this is something that we can help with. That's helpful for us to be able to support you. Because otherwise it's like, well, there's 30 initiative ideas and here's, a dozen that are kind of working on it, and we can't tell you to varying degrees what's there. So that's my ask of you, is if you can share a project canvas, that helps me help you better, and then we will share them out as widely as possible. So that's my ask of the next steps. Who's next?
I'll go, just as kind of since I'm the call guy on this. So if anybody has, I think it'd be great if people amended the Storytelling Meetup agenda notes document here that I've got some notes on. But if you saw things that, action items that need to be done, if you can put them in there, or if you have ideas or links that you've shared, say in the chat of a Zoom, if you could put them in there, I think that'd be really helpful. And then I will I'm trying to keep track of all the different balls in motion on all these projects going on, and I haven't figured out where to do that yet and how to share that yet, but I'm trying to figure that out.
Sorry, I gotta run. I gotta go take care of my daughter right now. I'll send a follow-up with a few thoughts, Jeff, if you want to pull that into the follow-up email. It's going to be rough and dirty, but
Okay, thanks, Annika.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, anybody else? No. What would help any of you who are left on the call?
I think that's my big thing. I need to really read and digest the project brief. There's a lot of content in there.
So
Okay.
is the link to the proposal in the, I know you put it in the chat, but where else can I get it? Annika, could you just email it to me?
Oh,
Is
I think
Annika gone?
you're on, yeah, so Annika's off the call, but Jeff's.
Oops,
Jeff,
I was muted, sorry. So Beth, I put that in, a link to it in the storytelling agenda notes.
Okay, and the
Okay.
Slack channel is definitely the best method to communicate with each other throughout the month. And so if you are not on the Slack channel and would like to be, then just shoot me an email and at eshipgoals@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that you're included. And there is a separate storytelling channel. So does anybody have anything else that they'd like to share or request of the group?
I just have a question. So project canvases, do current project canvases that actually have project teams that are in motion, do they live on the agendas anywhere, or?
There's not been any to upload except for one that I currently have. And so as we get them, we'll upload them onto the dashboard.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I think that would just be very helpful for new people coming on, looking at the agenda, where you can quickly look at project canvases and who the team members are.
So we can definitely add a link to where the project canvases will live on the dashboard onto the agenda notes, and then we'll update the dashboard with current project canvases. So,
Sounds good.
And we'll cross-pollinate those. All right. So we appreciate everyone's time. Jeff, any parting words?
Tiger. That just popped in. I don't know. That's my parting word.
Like Tony the Tiger.
And it's go out and attack the world like a tiger. There you go.
All right. Well, everybody, you've got a call to action now. Thank you so much for your time and energy. We'll look forward to talking with you soon.
All right. Thanks all.
Thank you.